What's going on, guys? Motivation Monday, episode 130. Today I want to talk about relationships. I like how the word relationship in itself has the word ship in it, because I feel that any relationship, in order for it to float, it takes a lot of work, just like a real ship, to keep it going, to keep it sailing, to keep it moving forward. Now, just like in real relationships, on the water, there's always things that are going to try to knock the ship down. There's going to be waves, there's going to be wind, there's going to be so many different things that are working to tear that ship down. In order to keep it sailing, you have to constantly be working, constantly adjusting, and constantly putting effort into the relationship in order to make it sail. There's going to be all these obstacles in your way, and the same thing happens in a relationship. There's going to be things that try to knock you down. There's going to be arguments, there's going to be the hard times, there's going to be the rough times, but it's learning from those experiences to help develop and strengthen your relationship, to help it persevere and sail into the moonlight. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of understanding yourself. So many times we get consumed with our needs and our wants, but we need to understand that in a relationship, it needs to be a lot of how can I help the other person? How can I communicate with the other person? And how can we both live together in harmony and make things work through understanding each other, through appreciating each other, and through just literally putting in the effort to make it work. I think in a strong relationship, it takes less arguing and more listening. It takes less comparing and more understanding. It takes less pointing fingers and more accepting the blame. It takes accepting that there's going to be hardships and there's going to be pain and there's going to be hurt, but understanding that trust and compassion can help lead you to where you want to go. The thing about relationships is that it takes two to make it fully functional. If there's only one side putting in all the effort, that one side will eventually get drained and empty. It needs to be a balance of lifting each other up, building each other up, and pulling each other together. I think in relationships it's so easy to say, hey, remember how it used to be back then, but there's less focus on how things should be now. When things aren't always going to be the way they used to be, but they can be better than what they were if you're willing to understand each other and put in the work to make a relationship flow. Have you ever said something to somebody in the heat of the moment and wish you could have taken it back? When you're really upset and you're getting really emotional inside of a relationship, you need to take the time to reflect on the words that are going to come out of your mouth, because a lot of the times we want to say something that we think right away, but it might not necessarily be what we mean. We could say things that hurt people, and when we realize what we've said, it can be hurtful to us as it already was hurtful to them, and then we're getting caught in this limbo of pain and pain. If you're in a relationship and you get into an argument and someone is heated, there needs to be a balance in this ship where someone is able to understand and say, hey, you're not in the right mindset right now, let's calm down, let's cool it down, let's kick it back a notch. Because if you fight fire with fire, the fire blows up and explodes. You're going to have combustion at some point. You both are going to be so irritated and agitated, things get said that shouldn't be said. That's what I'm talking about, the balance in a relationship. You're not always going to be the happy one. There needs to be balance. If someone is upset, sometimes you need to be able to take a loss and say, hey, I'm upset too, but look, we need to focus on you right now. Or vice versa, where someone just says, hey, listen, I understand that you're mad. Listen, I really think that you need to hear me out on this thing. Communication is the key, but if we don't communicate, words get lost in the translation. There's no transcript to a good relationship. There's no textbook that shows you how a good relationship should work. We're all expecting everything to be sunshine and rainbows in a relationship, when really there's a lot of rain and there's a lot of downfall and there's a lot of clouds that are coming down and attacking the relationship at all times, and you need to constantly be working within the relationship together to make it work. I think the problem is that when things get hard, initially we want to walk away. We want to shut down. We want to hold things inside. We want to not communicate. And those are the things that are going to hurt a relationship. When things get hard, you have to be able to sit down and hold each other accountable. You have to be able to sit down and say, look, my bad. You have to be able to sit down and say, look, it's not always about me. Because in a relationship, it's a two-way street. And if you want to stay on your one path, it might turn to a fork in the road. If you're so worried about yourself, you can't be invested into the ship. A real relationship, you should build each other up and not break each other down. In a real relationship, you should be able to be honest with each other and hold each other accountable, not lie to each other and get upset when things don't go your way. In a real relationship, you have to make sacrifices when things aren't going the best. In a real relationship, you have to be able to say, I'm here for you. So often in relationships, you can get caught up in what other people think about you and this person, what other people people are thinking. You're getting caught up in a perception of a perception of a perception. Nobody understands what's going on within the relationship except you and the person that are in it, dealing with it together. And if you start turning on each other, there's no way that the foundation of that relationship can stay strong. It's one thing to communicate your problems, it's another thing to completely throw the other person under the bus. When it gets into a competition of who's right and who's wrong, maybe it just needs to be as simple as, what can I do to make this better? Instead of I'm sorry, it should be how can I be better? Instead of I apologize, what can I do differently? I think one of the hardest parts about a relationship is that when things get heated and guns start blazing, it's really hard to put down your gun, to put your pride aside and just say, hey, there's a problem here, we need to fix it. I know that I was wrong, how can I make this right? What can I do to make this right? Instead of always going tick for tack, it needs to be, I know that I hurt you, I know that I upset you, how can I make this better? And the same way when things are going well, you're happy, I'm happy, how can I be better? How can I continue to make you happy? How can we continue to keep this relationship going at this rate? Because it's so easy to get caught up into the routine of things, and then when someone has expectations, you can really let that person down. So instead of having those expectations, it's important to communicate with that person in order to let them know what's really going on in your mind, because a lot of the times we feel that people should understand, and we feel that people should know us enough to know what we want and to know what we need and think the way that we think, but it doesn't always work like that. And people can't read your mind, can't read the way you feel all the time, even the people that love us the most. In that situation, instead of holding expectations, it's important to communicate so that you don't get hurt and that you don't get let down. And if someone does let you down, you have to understand that not everyone is perfect. There's no one on this planet that is going to be there for you time after time after time after time and will never let you down. There will be certain things about somebody that are going to let you down. Everybody has their flaws. The important thing is, if you're with somebody that is willing to work on those flaws, and if you're with somebody that is willing to invest into relationship to make it work, and if you're with somebody that is able to understand that it shouldn't always be about me, it needs to be more about us. Instead of you did this or you did that or I did this or I did that, it should be more of what can we do to make this relationship flow. It's so easy to get caught up in yourself, but a relationship is always about teamwork. How can you guys work together efficiently to make this relationship work? You have to be able to forgive. You have to be able to let things go, because not everything is always going to be perfect. And if you hold the grudge, you're only hurting yourself and you're only hurting the relationship. You need to make sure that if you trust somebody and if you're willing to forgive somebody, you can't constantly pull it out of the dirt and always bring it up to constantly attack your relationship. That's one of the main things that will make your relationship sink. Now, everybody carries past wounds and past hardships from past relationships. Now, if we cannot communicate and efficiently understand each other, those old wounds can bleed on a new relationship. Make sure that you're not bleeding on your new partner because of old wounds that have hurt you in the past. The person that you're with now shouldn't be held accountable for someone that hurt you before. The person that you're with now should be respected and trusted until proven otherwise. If you're constantly living in the past, there's no way you can focus on a tunnel vision and sail out into the future. If you're so busy on focusing on all the downfalls, how can you possibly see the light? When you're unable to trust somebody, when you're unable to communicate with somebody, when you're unable to move past old wounds, you're spewing venom into a relationship, and there's no way that you can find the antidote if you're not willing to do those things. The antidote is being selfless and understanding that it's a cumulative effort to make the relationship work. A lot of people are sleeping in this world. It's time to wake them up. Motivation Monday, episode 130. No matter what happens, you have to stay in tune with yourself. The moment that you lose yourself, there's no way that you can be strong enough to compensate for the other person's needs. So don't lose yourself, stay strong. Now, I'm not saying every relationship is meant to go the distance. Not every ship sails into the sunlight. But if you want to be in a relationship that does, you have to understand that not everything will be easy. You have to make sacrifices, and there's a lot of work that goes into making that ship sail. Teamwork, let's get it. Gang, gang.